With the Skywalker Saga having come to an end and the Clone Wars series doing just the same, and the fact that my fiance is on a bit of a Wars kick herself, I've decided that it is finally time for me to voice my opinions on the internet about Star Wars. It's been nice knowing you all. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Murpho. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you could, please like, share, as well as think about subscribing to the channel and hitting that bell button for notifications. I'd really, truly appreciate it. And in this tier list video, I'm going to be talking about Star Wars, the brand that is near and dear to my heart. I have been a Star Wars fan for as long as I can remember. I've watched the original trilogy and the prequels countless times over. I've seen practically all of the series that has been released. I've seen just about all the specials that can be seen. I've played countless video games. I've read comics. I've read a few of the books. I'm huge into Star Wars. It's been a huge part of my life. And so with everything going on recently with Star Wars, I figured now would be a great time for me to finally talk about it and use my tier list series as a vehicle to voice those opinions. This video is going to be about all the canon movies and shows that are currently out for Star Wars. So it's going to cover the entire Star Wars Skywalker Saga. It's going to cover the spin-off movies like Rogue One and Solo. It's going to cover the series like Clone Wars and Rebels and a couple other things as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's jump into the tier list. All right, so here we go. Right up above me, every single part of the current Star Wars canon, the films, the shows, the micro series, all of it is above. And before we get into it, I just want to mention that these are just my opinions, and they're not exactly final opinions. Your opinions may differ on the stuff up here, where they land over there, and I just want to say that's okay. I am not here to be the be-all, end-all. My opinion is right, and it is the opinion. This is merely me giving my thoughts on the Star Wars in order to create hopefully a positive dialogue. Let's try to not be negative here, and I also entertain the right that, I can very well change my opinion on any of these in the future. Some things may age well, they may not age well. Other pieces of content might make these films or series better or worse, who knows? And my opinions and my thoughts upon future viewings of this content might change over time. So do not feel that I am making this and saying this is the way that Star Wars should be and you better fall in line. You're welcome to love Star Wars whatever way you feel. We are all Star Wars fans, and I feel like we should love and respect each other and each other's take and try not to be negative and toxic to one another. And let's please be respectful down in the comments down below. And if you do have any difference of opinions, just let me know constructively and, critically and kindly with positive constructive feedback. And, you might change my opinion on something. I'm willing and open for discussion. Let's try not to fight. And with that said, with that disclaimer in there for Star Wars, let's get to it. We're going to start off with the one that started it all. By the way, this is all in chronological release order. So from the oldest Star Wars canon release to the most recent Star Wars canon release. And we're starting things off with Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, the original Star Wars, originally just called Star Wars, the one that started it all. And I've mentioned in previous tier lists that sometimes the first entry doesn't quite get it right. It gets enough right to keep the series alive, to create a series, and to get things going. Not the case with Star Wars. Big Granddaddy Papa Lucas knocked it out of the park in his first shot. It is iconic, one of the greatest movies of all time, the original Star Wars. It goes into the S tier. So many iconic things created. The Death Star, Vader, Luke, Han, Leia, that holy trinity of Star Wars, Chewbacca, R2-D2 and C-3PO, Grand Moff Tarkin, the destruction of Alderaan, the Trench Run, the Battle of the Death Star, Use the Force Luke, Obi-Wan Kenobi, the training, the Jedi, John Williams's iconic score that would be used and iterated on from that point forward. Star Wars, the first one, got everything right. It belongs in the S tier. Possibly the best Star Wars movie of all time. I know myself and a lot of other people don't feel that way. There's one other one, I think you know what it is, that's better. But without a doubt, this belongs in the S tier. And speaking of that film that's better, Empire Strikes Back. The Empire Strikes Back, I don't think I really need to create any suspense. It goes up into the S tier. It is the greatest Star Wars film ever created. And it found a way to be dark while still maintaining hope, with the segments with training with Yoda, with some of the optimism and upbeatness of Luke in the beginning of the scene in the film with Hoth, to the very end, even after Han's taken in carbonite. Lando and Chewie are like, all right, we're gonna go fix this, we're gonna go find Han. And Luke and Leia, though they're out and beaten on the sides of the galaxy, they're smiling, they're hopeful, they know that it's not all over. There's still plenty of rebel forces left. They're gonna be able to find Han, they'll be able to use the Force. The training sequences with Yoda, the expansion of the Force, the Battle of Hoth, the AT-AT walkers, the snow speeders, the Wampa, the vision in the cave on Dagobah, and of course, I am your father. No, Luke, I am your father. The right way that the film, that the quote is actually said, because Luke precedes it with, he told me enough, you told me you killed him, which was a response to Obi-Wan, never told you what happened to your father. Iconic movie, great movie. I don't think there's really anything bad that can be said about it. It is the high watermark of all of Star Wars. Enough said. I think we should move on to what is my personal favorite film in the Star Wars saga. Not the best. I can objectively say that the original and Empire were better films, but this is my personal favorite. I love that the redemptive arc of Darth Vader comes to fruition here, that Luke fully redeems his father. We get the amazing sequence at Jabba's palace. We get fun moments with Boba Fett, who is introduced into Empire. More points for Empire. I didn't mind the Ewoks as much. The Battle of Endor was amazing, even though it was a second Death Star. We got to see the Emperor finally, and the Emperor get his comeuppance. I just love the redemptive arc and the hopeful ending that Star Wars gives you at the end with the Yoda, Anakin, and Obi-Wan ghosts at the very end. So I love Star Wars Return of the Jedi. It is my personal favorite, as I've said a million times before. It goes into A tier, not quite S tier like Empire and the original Star Wars, but close. Now we're gonna move on to the prequels. I feel like the prequels, for the most part, got a bit of a bad rap. Granted, I watched the prequels. The prequels came out when I was a preteen and a teenager, so maybe that has something to do with it, but I always felt like the prequels expanded a lot on what Star Wars was, and I feel like because it wasn't so much the OT, that it got more hate than maybe it should have gotten. And I really like, actually, Phantom Menace. I don't think it's really that bad of a film. Yes, Jar Jar can be annoying. Yes, Anakin can kind of be annoying. But the pod race was amazing. Duel of the Fates was amazing. Qui-Gon Jinn, an amazing character. We get to see scheming Palpatine. I kind of like the machinations of the Greater Republic and seeing the Republic in its height. Seeing Yoda. We got introduced to Mace Windu in this film. I already mentioned, I think, Darth Maul, who is one of the best villains in all of Star Wars. There's plenty to love. I used to love the Naboo starfighters as well. The planet of Naboo is beautiful. And I also, another thing that really helped me with the way that I place this film and why I feel it's a good Star Wars film is if you guys check out the Mandalorian documentary that's going on right now, episode 2 has Dave Filoni go off about how important Duel of the Fates is and why episode 1 is important and why Qui-Gon Jinn was an important person and why he was trying to take Anakin and do the right thing by Anakin and believed in the prophecy and the father figure and how it sets everything into motion for the next 6 films. And the way that Filoni puts things into context for episode 1, I think is beautiful. It's part of the reason why I love Dave Filoni, and I personally feel like he should be in charge of all creative for Star Wars, kind of like a Kevin Feige for Star Wars, but that's neither here nor there. That's besides the point. Where am I gonna place episode 1? I'm not gonna place it in S or A. I'm gonna put it in B. I think it's a good movie. I don't think it's as good as the original trilogy. And I personally do love episode 1. I used to recite actually the entire script of episode 1 with a friend of mine when we were kids and playing an episode 1 card game when we were younger. That's how much I love episode 1. But I do recognize I don't think it's as good as any of the films in the original trilogy. I don't know if I want to put it up in A, but it is a good Star Wars film. I'm going to put it in B. Now we're going to go to Attack of the Clones. Like I said, the prequels got a lot right. Attack of the Clones is where a lot of things went wrong. The dialogue in this movie is terrible. This is a prime example of why George Lucas needs help making Star Wars movies. The romance between Padme and Anakin is so terribly written. But I will say there is still some stuff that I really enjoy about Attack of the Clones. I like Geonosis. I liked Christopher Lee as Count Dooku, was amazing. I really enjoyed Obi-Wan and his quest and going to Kamino and finding the clones. The idea of Jango Fett and the clones and Boba Fett. I didn't mind Boba Fett being a clone too much. We got more badass Mace Windu in the Geonosis battle arena. We've got the first act of open war, a tease for the Death Star. I felt like there was enough good in episode 2 to keep it from going into F tier. But I will acknowledge it is one of, if not the weakest Star Wars films out there, and as such, dropping it down into E tier, even though I personally feel like I can put some of that aside and watch and really enjoy the movie. I feel like it's fair to put it in E. Definitely the low point of the franchise, at least until we get into another movie. Moving on to episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. High watermark for the prequels. This is the best prequel movie out there. I love Revenge of the Sith. It does suffer a little bit of that dialogue romance issue with Anakin and Padme. Kind of trickles over from episode 2, but the performances by Ewan McGregor, by Sam Jackson, by Ian McDiarmid as Palpatine was amazing. Order 66 hits you so hard in the feels. The fight between Yoda and Palpatine, the battle of heroes between Obi-Wan and Anakin, the opening battle of Coruscant. I enjoyed General Grievous, even though, yes, he was kind of hyped up in the animated Samurai Jack-esque Clone Wars series, and he was kind of a punk B-word in Revenge of the Sith here. It was nice to see him. I did enjoy the segment with him and Obi-Wan, and also, you know, it did create what is now a very popular and awesome TikTok meme of, hello there, General Kenobi. So I really enjoyed Revenge of the Sith. I love Revenge of the Sith. It's one of my favorite Star Wars films, to be honest with you, and I feel like it deserves credit. Bad dialogue aside, and the whole no moment aside, I feel like there is way more good than bad here. I'm actually putting Revenge of the Sith up in A tier. Now we're gonna move on to post-prequel, pre-sequel territory here with the Star Wars The Clone Wars special film. I actually watched this after I watched the Clone Wars series because I heard it really wasn't that great. And now having watched it, maybe it's because I watched the Clone Wars series first. Really, I didn't see this as much of a film, but more of a like introductory, very long, what's the word for like premiere episode, pilot episode for the Clone Wars series. It introduces Ahsoka Tano, who is one of my favorite Star Wars characters of all time now, after all they've done with her in Clone Wars and Rebels, and now she's coming back to The Mandalorian. So I feel like, while this wasn't anything that was particularly great, the whole stinky thing and the Jabba the Hutt stuff was a little weird, but I was entertained by it. I didn't think it was bad. I thought it was fun. I did not waste an hour and a half watching it, and so I'm not going to put it up here with the films, but I will put it in C tier. You know, I don't think it was that terrible. I enjoyed it. I didn't feel like I wasted time, and it gave a great introduction to the Clone Wars series, which is just wrapped up with episode 7 and season 7 and the Siege of Mandalore. And I think the Clone Wars is the best thing to happen to Star Wars since the original trilogy. It fleshes out that relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan. Ahsoka becomes an amazing character. You really get to know and feel for the clones and the tragedy of the betrayal of the clones in Revenge of the Sith with Order 66 is only deepened. In the first few seasons, it is a little, it does carry a little bit of that kindness from the film. We do have a little too much, like, Ahsoka's really like a spunky kid in a war zone, kind of, with a little, you know, if you want to call it quote unquote kiddish, which isn't too terrible. But as it gets moving, you get more and more. You get the introduction of Cad Bane, Hondo Ohnaka, who is now in Galaxy's Edge. Another reason why I've decided to do this video, because family and fiance and I are hopefully going to Galaxy's Edge in Disney World next year, so big time hype for that. But I feel like the Clone Wars did so much right, was added so much context to the prequels, made the prequels better. It goes into S tier. It is amazing. If you are a Star Wars fan, I highly recommend that you watch the Clone Wars series. It is one of the best pieces of Star Wars content ever, not just in the new canon, ever. Moving on to its sequel series, Rebels, another show that I also very much loved. Freddie Prinze Jr. as Jedi Kanan Jarrus. Ezra Bridger was good. We got the return of Ahsoka, the duel between Ahsoka and Darth Vader. The first time they've seen one another since Order 66. So much emotional weight. They brought back Maul to kind of finish his arc, because at the time Clone Wars hadn't done season 7 and they hadn't finished everything up. I did like his final fight with Obi-Wan at the end. Lots of really good moments. I really enjoyed Rebels. I don't know if I can put it up into S tier with Clone Wars. I don't know if it's up there with that group, but it's definitely one of my favorite pieces of Star Wars content. I'm gonna put it in A tier. I also recommend that if you are a Star Wars fan, you check out this Filoni series as well. We get Saw Gerrera in here, who's also in Clone Wars, but an older Saw Gerrera, closer to when Rogue One happens. We get Mon Mothma. We get more of Bail Organa. We do get a little bit of Obi-Wan. We get some Maul. We get the return of Ahsoka. We get some really wonky stuff involving Mortis and like the really ethereal, crazy parts of the Force that were teased a little bit with the Mortis arc in the original Clone Wars series. Very great stuff. I highly recommend you guys check it out. Then we're gonna go into the sequel trilogy era. Star Wars: The Force Awakens. I honestly really like Force Awakens. I know that it really retreads a lot on A New Hope, and you know, part of my reasoning for why I like it so much, and I didn't mind it as much as others. I saw this film 3 times in theaters. It's like Lucas said, you know, the story of Star Wars, it's supposed to be like poetry, it rhymes. J.J. Abrams kind of took that a little too seriously and beat you over the head with it, whereas with the prequels to the OT, you had these elements where themes and whatnot were kind of echoed and rhymed and whatnot, and symbols and the character arcs from A Hero's Journey from Joseph Campbell. And whereas, you know, Luke and Anakin were both on heroes' journeys that went different directions in the end, this was more like literal, like, oh, the droid has the plans. We have to find them. There's a death-killing weapon. It's going to destroy all this stuff. There was plenty in Force Awakens where I was like, oh, I don't know about this, but I did really, really like it. I'm going to put it where I have Episode 1. I almost want to put it in A tier because I really do enjoy Force Awakens. But I think I'm going to put it down below B tier simply because I do really enjoy Force Awakens. I don't know if I enjoy it quite as much as I do Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith, and Rebels. But I still think Force Awakens is a good movie despite all the retreading. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like I said, watched it 3 times in the theaters. I had a lot of fun with it. I really, really liked the idea of Rey. I didn't like the whole Kylo Ren thing to start. I've grown to be fine with it and appreciate it. And actually, I love Kylo Ren. He's one of my favorite Star Wars characters now. But that was taken kind of from a legend story that I didn't enjoy as much. So all that aside, I really like Force Awakens. I feel like it goes in the B tier. Now we get to Rogue One, the film that a lot of people think is the best Star Wars movie out there, if not second only to Empire. I really like Rogue One. I love Jyn Erso. I like K2SO. The Battle of Scarif was amazing. We got the best Darth Vader scene in probably the entire saga, with him just shredding through those rebel soldiers. However, as much as I love it, I don't know if I'm not as big and hyped on Rogue One as say a bunch of others are. I really, really liked it, but I don't know if it's best of the best. I don't know if I can put it up there with Clone Wars, the original, and Empire. It is definitely one of the better Star Wars movies out there. One of the best. I thoroughly enjoyed it. However, I don't know if I can put it and give it as much praise as others. And so for me, it goes into A tier. I link it up with Rebels, with Revenge of the Sith, with Return of the Jedi. Definitely one of the top tier kind of films and content in Star Wars history. But I don't quite know if I could put it into S tier. I thought about it. Maybe one day I will. But for me, right now, at this present moment, while I'm looking at it right now, I feel like it goes into A. Great. But when I compare it to the likes of Clone Wars, to Empire, the original Star Wars, I personally can't put it above those or even on the same level as those. So I'm knocking it down to A. Now we're going to get to one of the first micro series, which I did check out a little bit of. Star Wars Forces of Destiny. For those who don't know, this little series is basically centered around the female characters, the main female characters of the Star Wars saga, and they're little animated 2 to 3 minutes. Sometimes they go to like 4 minutes. A little like mini micro episodes about little things that the female characters of Star Wars are doing. This ranges from Padme Amidala, Rey, and Leia to even the animated series characters like Hera Syndulla, Sabine Wren, and Ahsoka Tano. And I thought this was okay. It was all right. It was good. I would put it in probably with me personally. I'd probably put it in C tier. It's not bad. I think if you're a really big Star Wars fan, or if you've got, little girls or kids and you want to like inspire them with fun little side stories, this is perfectly fine. It wouldn't be maybe essential viewing, but you do have some cool character interactions that you maybe wouldn't have had in other series. So I thought it was really cool. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I didn't really have any problem with it. I think C tier is a solid place to put it. Star Wars: The Last Jedi. This is probably the one that everybody wanted me to see rate most. I do not like Star Wars: The Last Jedi. It bordered on hate when it first came out. I knew from the moment that film ended that I did not like it. Wasn't the feeling I had leaving a Star Wars film since I watched Attack of the Clones, really. I didn't like the way... I liked the place where Luke was. I didn't like the attitude and how he got there, perhaps. I think him being an old hermit who maybe didn't want to be involved because he felt like he was a bad influence was okay. I think him being a bit of a curmudgeon and a hermit was a bit extreme. I will say though that Rey, even though I don't like this movie, it is my least favorite Star Wars movie, there are still plenty of elements about this that I can pull from it that I enjoy. I don't want to just harken on the negative, even though I think Holdo's plan and that storyline was terribly done, really bad, made no sense. I felt like it was an example of absolutely poor leadership. I feel like the Holdo maneuver kind of messed with all logic of physics and everything we know of the Star Wars, and kind of changes the way you look at space combat in Star Wars, possibly not in a positive way. I didn't like that the Resistance was kind of reduced to practically like enough people who could only fit on the Falcon to an extent. The killing of Snoke really was sour on me. And Canto Bight, as everybody knows, went on for way too long. However, I'm going to focus on give you guys some of the positives. There was some great music, because, John Williams in this film, as always. I did like the imagery of Crate, the planet. I really liked Porgs. To be honest with you, I love the Porgs. I think the Porgs are adorable and amazing. I did like the little bits with Chewbacca and the Porg. I did like the backstory of Kylo and Luke, and I liked the way they did the different perspectives of it. I loved the Kylo-Rey relationship, the connection between the two of them that ended up forming into the Force Dyad in Rise of Skywalker. I did like a lot of that training stuff. Rey Nobody, I obviously didn't like, because I'm one who feels personally with the Skywalker Saga that the Skywalker films are about the Skywalkers, that like the protagonist should be Skywalkers, and then you wrap it up in a bow and it's all done. And I feel like Lucas meant the original legacy of Star Wars to be about fathers and sons and grandfathers and grandsons, and kind of like a family legacy. That was the way he originally envisioned it. And he even has said multiple times that he wanted the sequel trilogy to be about the grandchildren, the grandkids, plural, not just grandkid, of Darth Vader. So I felt like the reveal of Rey being a nobody kind of like really went against what Lucas envisioned for the sequel trilogy. And while we acknowledge with Attack of the Clones that Lucas sometimes isn't great with dialogue, and sometimes he doesn't make great decisions in the prequel trilogy with certain things, I still feel like Lucas's ideas are good. He just needs to be guided in the right direction, like what happened for most of the original trilogy. And I feel like this was such a disconnect from what Lucas's vision was, and that Rian Johnson tried to do a lot of misdirections and subversions just for the sake of doing them. Like in the words of Ian Malcolm from another franchise I really like, Jurassic Park, he was so concerned with whether or not he could, he didn't ask if he should. That said, like I said, I want to focus on the positives. I loved all the Jedi stuff. I love, aside from Luke's character to an extent, I loved the Kylo Rey stuff and Luke's dynamic with Rey. At first I didn't like Luke, the way Luke used his force projection and then passed away, but I've come to terms with it. I honestly think the force projection is actually amazing. I love the interaction he has with Kylo Ren, Ben Solo at the end. I liked what bits Leia had in there while she was there. I liked the moment of Kylo and Ben there. Kylo and Leia with the cockpit. I really liked Finn's progression as a character. Even though I liked Rose Tico as a character, I thought she was just poorly written. That whole sacrifice at the end was bad. Let's save the things we love by nearly killing ourselves and the people that we love. That kind of made no sense. Even though I feel like Finn's arc came to fruition. Finn, by the end of Rise of Skywalker, really came into his own as being able to fight for someone, but he hadn't learned to fight for a cause to a certain extent. And so this was him figuring out to pick a side and fight for a cause. There was a little too much muddiness around Canto Bight. It was too long. There were some, I feel like, a little too heavy-handed messaging that didn't need to be in there. I feel like that could have been shortened up and you still could have gotten that progression with Finn, but I did like the progression of Finn. Captain Phasma, sucks that we didn't get more of her. I feel like she was an underutilized character, but her fight with Finn and Finn winning, it's a great character moment and involvement for Finn. So, like I said, there's plenty that I didn't like about The Last Jedi, but I am not going to put it down into F tier because I feel like Attack of the Clones, it has enough redemptive parts about it that I can pull from that I enjoy to where it's not F tier. I'm going to put it in E tier. I like it less than Attack of the Clones because I feel like Attack of the Clones, at least it was Lucas doing his direction, and I liked the way Lucas kept things in tone. There was, and where I feel Rian Johnson, like I said, was just trying to subvert expectations just for the sake of subverting expectations, and I didn't think it went well. But again, not god awful, not an F tier. There was a period of time where I would have it in F tier, but now I have it in E tier. Perhaps over time with more viewings, my opinion will change and maybe I'll upgrade that to D or C. We'll see. That was an unintentional rhyme and pun there. Anyway, moving on to Star Wars Resistance, because I talked at length about The Last Jedi. Resistance, I haven't seen all of. This is the only thing that I haven't really seen in full outside of the micro series. And it's okay. It's fun. I talked with my friend about it who has completed seasons 1 and 2. I'm about halfway through season 1. And he basically echoed the sentiment that I had when watching it, which is it's enjoyable. It's fun. Is it as good as Rebels and Clone Wars? No. Does it tie in enough like with Rebels and Clone Wars, or is it like something that you feel like is required viewing? No. But is it bad? No. Will you enjoy it if you watch it if you're a Star Wars fan? Yes. I enjoyed it, and as such, definitely I think the weakest of the Filoni animated series, but it's not terrible. It's not bad. I still enjoy watching it. I'm definitely gonna continue and finish the series when I can. I like it. I like the inclusion of Poe. I like Kaz as a character. So I feel like it's a solid C. Now I move on to Solo. A lot of people didn't like Solo. A lot of people had issues with it. I personally didn't mind it too much. They did, kind of cram in a lot of Han's backstory into one film, but I honestly didn't mind it. I didn't mind that he was a grifter, or trying to like work his way out of Corellia. I didn't mind the fact that that they tied in the Kessel Run and him meeting Lando and the Falcon and all that stuff. I liked the inclusion of Crimson Dawn. I really like Beckett, played by Woody Harrelson's character. I love that character. I love him as a mentor, and I love that at the end, Han like cuts off his emotions in order to do the thing that he does in Episode 4. And that's not so much of a Han shot. It's kind of a tongue-in-cheek Han shot first, and to go against the Lucas revisions a little bit, but it's more so about Han has evolved as a character and knows that he needs to be a stone cold killer to survive in this world he wants to be in. And I liked that it showed that Han isn't so much a bad guy gone good, or like a ruffian gone good. He's a good guy that wants to be that kind of cowboy scoundrel type guy. I kind of like that he has that heart of gold, has always had that heart of gold. And just likes to be a bit of a scoundrel. I really didn't mind Solo that much at all. I really liked it. I have no problems with it at all, really. No major problems. I liked that Maul was in it. I wish we got some more out of it, but unfortunately, just bad timing. Came out so shortly after Last Jedi, which got panned by critics, myself included. And it had like zero to no good marketing. Plus the changing of writers made it really difficult. But I think Ron Howard picked it up and did a solid job with it. And can we just also just acknowledge how amazing of a job Donald Glover did as young Billy D. Williams, Lando Calrissian? I think it was fantastic. Overall, I liked it. I wouldn't say that I loved it as much as I say I would have liked Rogue One or some of the other, obviously, upper echelon series and movies, but I liked it. It was enjoyable. I really like Solo, so B tier for me. Then we're going to go into Galaxy of Adventures. Galaxy of Adventures is another micro series from Star Wars that is designed for kids, Star Wars kids, and it's basically animated recreations of different scenes with the audio from the movies, with audio from the movie, and breakdowns also on different types. So it's a way to like inform kids on the greater parts of Star Wars and break down the Star Wars lore and mythos while providing really cool animated sections of the films. So I actually enjoyed this. If you're a Star Wars fan, I feel like it falls in C tier like with the other micro series. Is it like required viewing? No. Is it fantastic? Some of the animated segments are, yes. But as a whole, it's nice supplementary, complementary content that, again, if you have young kids and you really want to get them into Star Wars, this is a great thing to show them. But overall, amongst all the rankings, I think C is a fine place to put it. And then we're going to get to The Mandalorian. It's only one season in so far. Ahsoka Tano and apparently Boba Fett, or maybe Captain Rex, because the actor for Jango, who is also all the clones, and Boba is going to be in season 2. Season 1 was amazing. The child, Baby Yoda, took the world by storm. This is the way. I have spoken. This is Star Wars at its finest. Favreau and Filoni get it. Taika Waititi get it. All the other directors. Pedro Pascal was fantastic. IG-11 was great. Grief Karga was amazing. The use of the Mandalorians. The fact that the Mandalorian himself, I'm blanking on his actual name, which really, bad Star Wars fan. Bad. The fact that he was found by Death Watch from the Clone Wars era was very intriguing. I love the series. I can't wait for it to see where it's going to go. Who knows? Maybe subsequent series won't be as good and I'll knock it down a peg. But for now, Mandalorian, S tier. I love The Mandalorian. It is one of my favorite pieces of Star Wars content. It's right up there with original Star Wars, Empire, and Clone Wars. And I do feel that it is better than Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith, Rebels, and Rogue One. And now we get to the final piece of the Star Wars saga of current canon as it is now, The Rise of Skywalker. Now, I feel like this was an okay movie. It did a lot of attempting to try and, I think, overly appease fans who didn't like The Last Jedi, which I appreciated some of it. I don't like the return of Palpatine, the Clone Saga, and Palpatine, Dark Empire, that kind of stuff in Legends was never really my favorite idea, and they kind of pulled from that to an extent. I feel like they didn't really explain it too much. The dagger that just happened to find the right spot to go for the Sith holocron, not a Sith holocron, I can't remember what they call the device that Kylo and Rey used to find Exegol. However, there is still plenty that I really enjoy about this movie. I didn't mind the Force dyad, like, okay, sure. It was explained later that, you know, Palpatine was always trying to create a dyad. The Sith have been trying to create a dyad. And so it's kind of funnily ironic that a former Skywalker that was bad that is turned back good in Ben Solo, and his own granddaughter who rejects his name and embraces the Skywalker and the Jedi. It's kind of ironically amazing karma that the dyad actually forms because of Palpatine's machinations against him and destroys him. So that's kind of cool. I did like the final fight at the end. I didn't mind the mounted cavalry, to be honest. I like the element where Finn met, I believe her name was Jaina, and all the other clones who turned out to be Force-sensitive clones, perhaps a new level of Jedi, maybe known as Skywalkers, perhaps. I liked that Rey made her own lightsaber and that it's yellow. Cool that we got a yellow lightsaber. I know people are gonna be like, oh wow, he had to go that deep to pull stuff they like, but no, there's more that I liked. I did like the dynamic of Finn, Rey, and Poe. They did feel a lot closer together. I loved the character journey that Kylo Ren took in this film. It made me fall in love with Kylo Ren even more, even though he had to die. I didn't mind Luke's Force Ghost inclusion in here. It kind of mirrored Yoda a little bit, but it was nice to see him in there and be not bitter. The Snoke explanation was okay. So overall, I liked Rise of Skywalker. It was okay. My brother put it actually in a funny way. Rise of Skywalker is basically Return of the Jedi Shasta version. As opposed to Coke or Pepsi, it's like Shasta or Adirondack Cola. Is it good? Is it still cola? Yes. So is it still Star Wars? Yes. It's cool. It's fun. But is it as good as the original? Or the higher brand? No. No, it isn't. I didn't absolutely love Rise of Skywalker. I did enjoy it. I did like it. But there was also equal parts about it that I didn't really like. That is kind of just due to being having to wrap up the sequel trilogy. So in the end, I place it in C tier. I don't think it was anything like fantastic, blew my mind, was the best Star Wars movie of all time. But was it bad? No. I enjoyed it. I had fun with it. I can come to terms with what I didn't like about it, and come to terms with what I didn't like about the prequels as a whole, and be okay with it and be positive about more Star Wars stories going forward. And with that said, at almost 40 minutes, that is it for this tier list video, this Star Wars tier list video. As you can see, being a Star Wars fan, I don't really like to be negative too much. The only two films I was really negative on was Last Jedi and Clone Wars. Even Rise of Skywalker, like C, I don't consider C as, oh, not too great. I consider it as, yeah, it's okay. I enjoyed it. I had fun. Was it amazing? No, but I liked it. So that's my list. That's my tier list. Let me know what you all think, where your tier list would be, where things would differ from mine. Maybe you'll change my opinion. Maybe when more Star Wars films and series come out a few years from now, maybe I'll issue a revised version of this, and maybe there will be some changes here. But let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like it. Don't forget to check out my other tier lists. I've tier listed so far the Final Fantasy video game series, and I've also tier listed WrestleMania. I'm also thinking for my next tier list video of continuing the Star Wars theme and doing Star Wars video games, and not just sticking to canon for those, since there's only like 3 canon video games out right now. So if you did enjoy this, please like it, comment, share, think about subscribing. That's going to do it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. If you want to come and talk with me about Star Wars live in person, I always love chatting Star Wars. Come check me out on over on Twitch at twitch.tv/L_Murpho. I stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday night every single week. Always open to talking about Star Wars, and you might catch me every once in a while playing a little bit of Battlefront 2. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and until I see you again, peace, deuces, and I'll catch you later. Well, that just helped a lot. Did pretty well defending this go around. We're Dookuing good. Yeah, come on, Yoda. Come on, Master Yoda. Goodbye, Master Yoda. Was worth it. Was worth it. Was worth it to take out Yoda.